Right. Structural dissociation of the personality, part 1. So we'll try. How long is part 1? Just have a little skim. Guys, it looks like every paragraph is just a quote from somewhere else that he's referencing again. But I see sub chapters like hyperarousal. This is looking spicy already. Associates of parts of the personality. Is this all still? Have I already gone? I can't remember what the chapter titles were already. Like a fucking idiot. Right, we should read the start anyway. Nah, fuck that. That's a load of shit. So whose title is first? Onno van der Hart is first on it, so it's his book, assisted by Ella Nienhuis, and Kathy Steele. God, I've forgotten how to say it completely. This is the way. Yeah, that's what I keep saying. I'm an idiot. I keep telling you guys, Lefadia. You guys have degrees, or if you don't have degrees, normally studying a degree. I'm a drug-addled, potentially brain-damaged, traumatized university dropout that just happened to be smart when he was a kid. These days I'm an idiot, and I'm just trying to... I just obsessively have special interests. I have autistic special interests I love researching, and my research on them is facilitated and assisted by having an audience to share it with. Makes it more fun. I'm a motherfucking idiot. You're a dropout, but you're redoing uni, aren't you? I know I'm smarter than the average. I thought you were. I'm confused. You confuse me at times, I swear to God. See what I mean? I'm an idiot. But yeah. I know I'm smarter than the average person, but I also know I'm very fortunate enough to have an audience made up of people that are not average, that are, I would say as a whole, probably decidedly above average, which is quite fortunate. And I know it's that case because, again, it's like my friends group that I've managed to grow up with and form as, like, you know, close long-term personal friends or whatever. You know, most of them are doctors and shit. It's crazy. You see, I'm going to apply. I haven't done the second go, so I'm going to apply for the second go because I want that student loan. I want to do it the way that Clary's done it, where I can still get, like, loan and other stuff and universal credit. Did we already hit chapter? Where does chapter 2 start? Chapter 2 starts at page 58. Okay, we are not reading all of chapter 1 then. If chapter 2 only starts at page 58. Oh my God. Right. Let's go. Let's go. Good old ADHD motherfucker. In this book, we share what we've learned from treating and studying chronically traumatized individuals across more than 65 years of collective experience. Hey, do you remember in the BPD book and some other thing we looked at, they always brag about their collective years of experience? I'm starting to think that might be a red flag rather than just... I think that's just a red flag. I think professionals don't need to power level on you in their books at the start in general. You're buying the book because they have the power level, right? So why are they power leveling on you in the first bit of it? You know what I mean? You know what I mean by power leveling? They're Vegeta, they're Frieza right now. Let me show you my power level. We have studied and traumatized individuals for 65 years. You know, and I feel like a real pro, it's that guy in the fight that loses, isn't it? Goku just stands there, laughs, and then just, like, 1-inch punches him. Whereas I'm literally just thinking about doing it for the money. And a bit of like possibly, maybe if I go for something like psychology, I don't know, maybe I'll enjoy it and I want to do it properly. We'll see. But I still don't know if I'd have the work ethic for it. But I may as well get that government money that I can, right? This government's fucked anyway, so. I used to have these moral issues, didn't want to be a benefit scrounger or whatever, and now I'm just like, oh my god, I used to think there was such a thing as benefit scroungers. Go fuck my Tory area completely. Lex's motherfucking like automated standing desk. It's sick. Desk is worth more than everything in my room combined. Oh no, I've got my computer. Got my computer. Right. We've listened closely to our patients, struggling to understand their complex and sometimes astounding internal experiences, which they often find difficult and frightening to put into words. We have learned from practical, theoretical, and scientific reflection, and have been stimulated in these regards by the rich literature on traumatization from the 19th century and the first decades of the 20th. Pierre Genet. I love fapping Daddy Pierre Genet. And more recent years. Me. A variety of concepts from numerous psychological theories have been most helpful in our quest, including learning systems, cognitive, affective attachment, A variety of concepts from numerous psychological theories have been most helpful in our quest, including. Right. So I guess you have to add on to each of these words concept. Learning concepts, system concepts, cognitive concepts. No, I'm just reading it as it is. Been most helpful in our quest, including learning, systems, cognitive, affective, attachment, psychodynamic, and object relations theory. Words good, yes. Yeah, I had internalized Toryism, mate. Recent research is the afterthought because he faps to Pierre Genet. Right. And then just says words. Recent developments in evolutionary psychology and psychobiology, especially affective neuroscience and psychobiological trauma, have been a major inspiration. Right. All these sources have contributed to our understanding that the essence of trauma is structure. All these sources have contributed to our understanding that the essence of trauma is structural dissociation of the personality. I think the essence of trauma is post-traumatic stress disorder. You can have your made-up whack. There we go. That's it. Oh my god. So their understanding is that the essence of trauma is structural dissociation of the personality. I disagree. I have trauma. I don't have structural dissociation of the personality. More people have PTSD than do DID. Therefore, we win. You lose. Case closed. What? Right? We use this concept to reinstate the original meaning of the term dissociation as formulated by Pierre Genet, the French philosopher, psychiatrist, and psychologist. I think philosopher comes first. He wasn't a psychiatrist or psychologist. Those words held no meaning back in 1859, I'm afraid. He was regarded as one of the most seminal psychiatric clinicians and thinkers of the last 2 centuries. Referencing someone from 1989. His work is essential for the understanding and treatment of trauma-related disorders. I need to stop my legs shaking. Our proposal with the term structural association of the personality stems from an urgent need. There are currently so many confusing and often contradictory definitions of dissociation that the concept has become very problematic. Yes, why don't we just use depersonalization, derealization, and PTSD? And why don't you fuck off? For example, the term can represent symptoms, a conscious or unconscious mental activity or process, a defense mechanism, and still more. No. It's never a defense mechanism. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism or defense mechanism. Put maladaptive there and you're fine. I guess you put defense mechanism things, but Range of symptoms. In this book, we propose the theory of structural dissociation in combination with the Janaean psychology of action. But what if you don't agree with Janaean psychology of action? Then it's defeated, right? Why does everybody now believe in Janaean psychology of action? You literally have to believe then, surely, in Janaean psychology of action. As I was saying before, like with the you have to believe in selfish gene, you have to believe in Janaean psychology of action to also believe in any of this in its premise, right? This is intended for clinicians, but also be of interest to students and psychiatry, as well as to researchers. Therapists who treat adult survivors of chronic child abuse and neglect will find helpful insights and tools that may make the treatment more effective and efficient, more tolerable for the suffering patient, such as how to extend their therapy for 20 years, make them dependent on you, and ruin their lives. And they may, as we did, rediscover an old truth that sometimes nothing is as practical as a good theory. We believe that theory and treatment approach presented in this book are also relevant to colleagues involved in the treatment of traumatized refugees, torture victims, and combat veterans, as well as those mostly focused on therapy. So what, is it either you have DID or you have PTSD because you're a refugee, torture victim, or combat veteran? See, PTSD is you've been in the army or you're a refugee. DID is you're sexually abused as a child, and CPTSD is you were just bullied a bit growing up. That's what it means. You know he's not critical of Janae. He wants to evolve and advance Janae's writings and workings, doesn't he? But whilst having to... We use this concept to reinstate the original meaning of the term dissociation as formulated by Pierre Janae. We use this concept to reinstate the original meaning of the term dissociation as formulated by Pierre Janae. Reinstate his original meaning. Not evolve or change, but reinstate. To devolve. To conserve. Always. Always, always, always. It talks about CBT and EMDR for people with PTSD. Right. Right. We're going to read from here. Structural dissociation of the personality, the basics. I have another self weltering in tears. I carry it deep inside me like a wound. Michael Tournier, 1972. Because when you are a man of science and a legitimate author, you must start every chapter with a quote. What a meme we have discovered together here. Every one of these cunts. I love it. This is my of all the disgustingness. This is just the meme I find funny and entertaining, where it's been so consistent now across the board with these cunts. I love it. It's so adorable in a way. Like, they all got taught how to write a book, you know, because they're all mates with each other. So they all learned. They were like, "This is how you write. You start a chapter with a quote from someone." Well, it might be suffering porn. Let's find out. Let's find out, huh? You're not being positive there. Right. What I want us to look for. Right. Let's put out some pointers. What we learnt from I Hate You Don't Leave Me. What do we look for in the initial? We look for misogyny. All right. We look for lazy language. You know, if they can say they or them, do they say they or them, or do they say he? Do they say her? Do they say he/her, or do they continue with, or do they say her, she? Right. So we're looking for gendered language. We're looking for outdated ideas and things. We're looking for, all sorts of, oh come on, Pete, think harder. We're looking for brainwashing language or manipulative language, language that might encourage dependency. Because again, they always say with this stuff they encourage it for clinicians, but we all know the people buying this stuff is majority the sufferers, because they want to learn more about their disorder and they can't find out about it anywhere. They turn online and everyone recommends them these books, that they buy these books. I know for a fact both Chloe and Jess own this. Oh yeah, and of course, no, well done, no, fair enough, Twilight, because yes, we must, as I said so many times on Sunday, or yeah, Sunday, as I said so many times on Sunday, we must keep an eye. We must remember, we must read this within our mind, the knowledge that this was written off the back of Hilly's suffering, abuse, neglect, him admitting he made her iller, him knowing that he had made her ill for 10 years and then continuing to make her ill for 10 more years. We must remember that this was written. This book was published before he published his actual paper, by the way. The paper was published in 2010. The first publication of this book is 2006. There have since been many revised editions. I have here the original 2006 variant. No revisions. So, right in the thick of it. Treating her from 1985. No, yeah, 1985 to wait, 1985 to 2015. He was treating her for 30 years then. They kept saying it was from 85 to 2015 that he treated her, right? But that's 30 years, not 20 years. And they could only look at 10 years of their history, legally. And then we watched that video of at the start of the stream of that woman who was friends. We watched that video of Kathy Steele talking about a patient that she knew that had been treated for 30 years and laughing about it. Oh my God. She was talking about Hilly there. If I just rewrote my brain, did he start treating her in 95? No. Or was it 95? Might be 95. Did he? Did he start treating her? It was 85. No, they did. It was 85 he started treating her, and he stopped, and she finally left his treatment in 2015. And the court only would look at 10 years of it. The court said that there were 10 years prior to look at, but no, there was 20 years prior to look at. The fuck? And then we literally...
So this is the typical conundrum. Capable than she was as a child. The adult not very effective internally, able to help the other side work.
When she presented initially, you had said she had 30 years of therapy.
Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it?
So my guess is, my guess, therapy.
Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it?
So my guess is,
Messy, 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 messy. There is often confusion about what kind of events and personal characteristics can be associated with dissociation, and what in fact is dissociated in a traumatized individual. This chapter addresses these issues, which are essential to the understanding of structural dissociation. The term trauma is used often and loosely, so we begin by setting the parameters of the term traumatization as we use it, specifically in relation to structural dissociation of the personality. Trauma essentially means wound, or injury, or shock. Yeah, I agree with all that. The word is first applied to the psychological impact of stressful events by a German neurologist who introduced the term psychic trauma. In the clinical and scientific literature, the term traumatic event is common, and the term trauma is often used as a synonym for such events. However, events are not traumatic in themselves, rather they may be so in their effect on a given individual. Yep. Thus, not every individual who experiences an extremely stressful event will actually be traumatized. So when we speak in this book of trauma, we do not refer to an event, but only to the emotional wound in individuals who have developed a degree of structural dissociation, a trauma-related disorder. It was all good until that last bit, but yes, I agree with that in essence, yes. The extent to which an individual will become traumatized is due to two sets of interacting factors. Your genetics and your genetics, right? Just your chances in life and your chances in life. The objective characteristics of the event and the subjective characteristics that define the individual's mental energy and mental efficiency. Components of integrative capacity. Good night, Clary. Hope you fall asleep listening to the soothing tones of enraged me. Here we focus on general vulnerability factors inherent in both adults and children. Characteristics of potentially traumatizing events. Some events have more potential to be traumatizing than others. They include experiences that are intense, sudden, uncontrollable, unpredictable, and extremely negative. Events that are interpersonally violent and involve physical harm or threat to life are more likely to be traumatizing than other kinds of highly stressful events, such as natural disasters. What? No, I'm pretty sure surviving natural disasters has definitely been shown, and this is what I mean. This is so outdated. It's just we didn't respect what people had gone through as being PTSD inducing in this time, in the 90s when they were using their literature from. We've actually improved, yet people are still using this knowledge from this book. Good times. Events that are not literally life-threatening, but which include attachment loss and betrayal by an important attachment figure, also increase the risk of traumatization. Child abuse often includes all of these event factors. In children, interpersonal violence is usually accompanied by neglect. But neglect may also occur within adult relationships. Neglect is a form of traumatization in which there is an absence of essential physical or emotional care, soothing and restorative experiences from significant others. In children, these experiences are developmentally requisite, and in adults, they may be needed under certain circumstances, such as the aftermath of potentially traumatizing events. I think people always need human empathy, contact, care, and compassion, not just in the aftermath of potentially traumatizing events. Anyway, what a weird fuck. What a weird thought to have. Essential physical, emotional care, soothing, and restorative experiences from significant others are not important for adults except in the aftermath of potentially traumatizing events, according to Onno van der Hart. What a cold, psychopathic, sadistic freak. I disagree. I think if you look at just, I don't even agree entirely with it, but if you were to just look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you'd see that for any human being to live any kind of fulfilling, happy, healthy life, there is not just in developmental phases, but adults too, not just in certain circumstances, adults throughout their life will need physical, emotional care, soothing, and restorative experiences from other human beings, especially significant others. I don't think I'm out of place in saying that. That's literally part of the hierarchy of needs, and every hierarchy of needs, in every dominance hierarchy, in the dominance hierarchy, that is the essential. Recurrent exposure to major stresses over time, such as child abuse, appears to have the most pernicious effects on survivors. Chronic traumatization increases the risk for trauma-related disorders and for more severe and extensive symptoms, including illicit drug use and attempted suicide. These include not only mental but also physical symptoms because brain development and neuroendocrine function are compromised. Chronic traumatization is a major factor in the. Also, he does keep referencing himself here. Nienhuis, van der Hart, and Steele are referenced continuously. They keep referencing themselves yet again. Chronic traumatization is a major factor in the development of more complex forms of structural dissociation. Lack of social support constitutes a major factor for the development of trauma-related disorders. This may be especially true for children because they are so completely dependent on adults for help in integrating difficult experiences. Comfort, support, and care are essential in maintaining and improving an individual's mental efficiency. Mental efficiency. You must maintain your mental efficiency. Adults do not need support, care, and compassion to maintain mental efficiency. Only after potentially traumatic incidents must an adult need some kind of care to maintain their mental efficiency. In part because they have important physiological calming effects. Supportive touch is a major stress reducer and can help modulate strong emotional controls. But you only need it during moments of after intense stresses and trauma if you are adult. Children may need comforting touch at all times, but adults never, never, ever. Unless traumatized. And only then in the moment of trauma. Don't want to make no weak-ass pussy adults. And I'll sing in a sec. Let me have a bong. But if I sing, then Clary will start bursting out with laughter and won't be able to sleep. That's cruel. Like straight up sabotage that. Sabotage attempt. Right. I could do lullaby style, to be fair. Many adults experience acute distress and some intrusions in the aftermath of overwhelming events. But these phenomena usually dissipate over weeks or months and generally do not develop into trauma-related disorders. These peritraumatic intrusions can be regarded as manifestations of a temporary and minor division of the personality prior to the complete integration of a stressful experience. But some individuals go on to develop trauma-related disorders. For example, research suggests that approximately 10 to 25% of adults who are exposed to an extreme stressor may develop simple acute stress disorder and PTSD. Meta-analyses found several major predictors of PTSD in adults. Prior cumulative traumatization, especially chronic child maltreatment. Prior psychological adjustment, family history of psychopathology, perceived life threats during the traumatization, pediatric emotional responses, and peritraumatic dissociation. Lack of social support and gender. Oh my god. Again, something I've been discussing with my transgender housemate recently on could there be a link at all to DID, trauma, and being transgender. Very complex and sensitive subject I'm not willing to have on this channel. Because that is one that needs to be addressed in full sensitivity and with the knowledge that is not one to be discussed in the means of offence. Just one that would be an interesting discussion to have in a platform with you guys, with everyone on board, knowing that there is no offence being meant in any direction. Everyone is just trying to learn and reach some mutual understanding. But it would have to, I'd probably want to get other people on to talk about it, to be honest, and have me moderate the conversation and provide prompts, do the Ian Dale, sit there and field some questions about it and keep everything very polite and decent for everyone and well-meaning, because that's a conversation that could easily be interpreted wrong or have people come into it trolling with well-meaning seeming questions that really aren't. That's the sort of thing that could go wrong without very careful moderation. Yeah, no, it's not one for me to talk about. It really isn't. It's one for me to field the platform for others that I know have had these thoughts as well. And I just have a platform where that discussion could be had and we could all potentially have an amazing learning experience from it. But yeah, because again, it could just be down to how much the society and the world we've lived in as of recent years has traumatized people. That could be why personally, every person I know that is transgender also does have a diagnosis of PTSD or has been misdiagnosed with something like BPD. Okay? That is purely from anecdote, personal experience, life. But now I live with two people that are transgender. It's been a fantastic opportunity to have these conversations with them, and we were having this conversation the other day, and they, from their personal experience, say yes, everyone they know in their own community historically has lived a fairly traumatized life, to put it bluntly. Now, is that to do with living the wrong gender until you can transition? Is that the trauma, or it's a discussion that needs to be had, and it needs to be had by people that are willing to do it in a really sensitive manner, that aren't the Blair Whites and aren't the Calvin Garrett's and aren't the bigots, because this is a conversation that they keep trying to sort of hint at, being like, oh, you're only transgender if you're autistic, you're only transgender if there have been arguments made in that angle, and it'd be better actually to get some people that are transgender, very anti people like Calvin Garrett and Blair White and stuff, who do have opposing opinions to them on 99% of things, to have this conversation in an actual safe space. I'd probably make it sub-only chat on that day, to be honest, to make sure. Yeah, I'd do a sub-only chat day for that, so only people with subs would be able to talk in chat, and then have some people that are transgender, that aren't me, come on and answer my own questions and what other questions you guys in chat may have. Because it's, well, I know this, as I'm saying, I've had this conversation with Lex. This is, off the back conversations I've been having with them. Again, people think being transgender is really rare, but then I look at my own history, and like, one of my best friends growing up transitioned, and she is much happier from what I know from everything being she. And then I thought of the YouTubers I follow in YouTube. I'd followed them for ages before finding out they were transgender, and just there's more transgender people in the world than people realize. Whereas people say there's loads of people with DID, the one I would say is where people are like, oh, but there can't be all these transgender people, and I'm like, actually, even before it was popular or anything, in my own life, I'd met a lot and known a lot of people who are transgender. So it kind of is that common, and probably more common than people realize. I'm very willing to say that. Probably a hell of a lot more common than people realize. Now, is that biological? Is that environmental? That is a question that, with anything that comes down to medical science has to be addressed. Is it biological? Is it environmental? And it's a very sensitive conversation that has to be had with the utmost of respect and care. A lot of the scientific community wants to use trauma or neurodivergence to pathologize being trans as something, and then because that's the fear. There we go, Trip. Thank you for summing up the fear of having this conversation. Because the second you start saying it's because of autism or because of trauma, you start saying there's a cure. But what if the cure for the trauma is transitioning? What if the being autistic, maybe it does increase your chances of being transgender, but is that because you're autistic and are easily influenced, or is there a gene involved? Is it actually biological? You know, that needs to be answered, I think. And it needs to be answered by people that aren't trying to pathologize it into a cure. By people that are like, because I'm 100% agree with the statistics and the facts that are out there, which 100% say no, transitioning reduces your chance of committing suicide. Medically transitioning reduces your chances of committing suicide. There is not a large amount of detransitioners. Blair White finds every single one she can to put them on a channel. 98% of the people that go through any form of medical transition are happy with it, live with it, and it improves their quality of life. That's thus the cure. That is the cure. The transition is the cure. We don't need to cure the transitioning. The transition itself is the cure. So that needs to be the sort of predominant fact out at the start of the conversation, I feel, is like, no, we're not saying this is to find a cure for being trans. This is to say, no, being trans is the cure for whatever is going on in the brain, but is whatever going in the brain environmental, genetic, blah, blah, blah. And I think we'll find it's a combination of all of it, won't we? We'll find it's probably a grand combination of all, as we often tend to. Every question, does trauma make you trans, or is it just the case that trans people have trauma? There we go. Yeah, exactly. That's basically the same question for me, in the same way as you can argue all autistics have trauma by dint of being autistic in a world that isn't built for us. That's literally, and again, my housemates have this question themselves and want to talk about it, but they themselves know, like, you can't have this conversation with people online, because if trans people start talking to right-wingers about this stuff, again, they'll run with it, won't they? They'll fucking run with it. They don't owe us education, but I'm trying to educate myself. And the best way I know of is to lift up the voices of other people, and let those who want to speak, and inform me. Like, it's not their job to educate us, but I'm trying to educate myself. And I believe the best form of education is through learning from the experiences of actual people. That's the counter argument I throw out, basically. And that's why I wouldn't put it on any specific trans person to talk to me about this, but rather throw it out as like an open conversation, to anyone that would want to involve themselves in the conversation, who anyone does want to throw out a hand to educate us, cis, cas, whatever, PPs. Yeah, Snail, you're in Discord. Yeah, you are. Yeah, of course. My DMs are always open, guys. Guys, my DMs are always open, like, always. Doesn't mean I reply, but my DMs are always open. And literally, just because you DM me does not mean you're entitled to a reply, or I'm going to reply, okay? Because 99% of the time, I'll look at it, read it, and then forget to reply because ADHD. But please do. My DMs are always open. Yes. Trip. It's basically the same as talking to Black people about the Black experience and learning about how to fight systemic racism. It is our job as white people to do it. It is not their job to educate us about it. But if I can learn from people that aren't white about issues that affect them, then I will. Basically, it's like and it is that complexity, isn't it? I guess, where you don't want to put it on them, but I don't want to put it on anyone, but I do want to beg these people. I do want to beg Black voices, Indian voices, Asian voices, Arabic voices to speak about their issues. I do want to beg trans people to speak about their issues. And like, again, one that I did actually download and is on my laptop, on my computer still, that I can still edit up one day, and I've just been really lazy because it was literally like 10 hours long. But like when me and Lex did that live stream, and we ended up chatting for like 8 or 10 hours about their experience, and it was so eye-opening about the disability angle and the trans angle and the way all of these things integrated. The integrative angle of all of it, the holistic angle of it all was incredible. The way all these things did combine in various ways. That's what I want to do again, but with slightly more, well, with the same amount of direction as last time, to be honest. But rather than just me and a person from the community, me and 2 or 3 people from the community, so I can more play the middle person there, fielding the questions from the audience, asking the right questions, and trying to learn from them, and in the process, all of us learn together. Anecdote time. I've spoken to precisely one trans person who considered detransitioning. It wasn't because she changed her mind about her gender. It's because she didn't realise how harsh society is on women until she started living authentically as one. She didn't transition, though. Good and depressing. Yeah, it's something I've chatted to one of my housemates about, Lex, is how they noticed how they got treated differently as a man. Better. Life's been, even being trans, which is in some ways, you'd think much worse, where they are these days very much, I hate using this language, passing or whatever, they've since found life actually comes with, they get lots of male privilege. They enjoy male privilege now. They didn't really fully get male privilege until they got some male privilege in their life. And now they experience male privilege with people like the doctors and people at shops and things. And life is different and they enjoy it. And it's things like that where, like if you're raised a certain way and you can experience various traumas, and then there is a life out there that's available for you that's the polar opposite, and is part of that's granted through transitioning. This is where this question has to become valid, and or at least the conversation, not the question. Doesn't mean the question is valid, but the conversation has to happen to determine the validity of this conversation of, right, do we need to talk about the because we need to talk about the trauma autism angle thing on it currently, but do we need to going forwards? Does the medical field need to talk about it, or should they just fucking move the fuck on? Like, I want to know that personally. I know people out there have their opinions on it. That's not how I learn. So, if anyone does have any trans friends and they would like to share their voice, or have discussed wanting to share their voice on subjects such as this, they are somebody who likes to engage in a debate or a conversation at least, please let them know that there is a platform that's going to be available to them probably this week, one of the days this week. I want to have that conversation. See, it's interesting. I'm glad I broached the waters in this way tonight, because even just broaching the waters, we've had some long conversation just off of the thought of the conversation. Just off the thought of the conversation. Yeah, that's why I take this change.
Never take your own life. Listen, 5 Brit Mac. Never take your own life.
Ooh. Clary, thank you. 5-month streak. Thank you very much. Also so satisfying, right? Isn't that great? That worked. I'm so happy. Yeah, not debate. I take back debate. I mean conversation. I want us to have literally just a pleasant, healthy conversation about it, not a fucking edgelord debate in the slightest. Just happy, healthy conversation about it where everyone can learn. That's why I'm definitely going to make a sub-only chat on that day when we do it. Because I just, the thought of actually having to really moderate trolls is just grim. So I'll just make it so it's just people that are subbed, and if anyone that's subbed ends up being a trolly cunt, they get banned. I actually don't care. But I trust them not to. I trust you guys not to, really do. I trust most of the people that are subbed to me not to do that. So I have good hopes for that, to be honest. I have hopes. Again, I have got a safe space here. I can make it a safe space anyway. And that's why I want to have this conversation here, not on YouTube. We can literally make it a really good conversation where people are just earnestly honestly, non-confrontationally, without bigotry or hate in their heart, asking questions that they are ignorant about to people that are willing to answer said questions in a platform situation where they're willing to answer those questions. You know, not getting asked it by rando in the street, not getting asked it by their aunt every time they go around for dinner. You know, actually in a situation where they've said, no, I want to answer these questions tonight because I get it. You know, tonight we're trying to help everyone learn. That's what I'm going for. Is my message clear? Do you guys get my intention? So intention is often just as important as what is said. Sometimes I say things so wrong, and it takes me so long to get my intention through, I feel. Snoring so bad, he's in the bathroom and it's echoing. But he's too cute to be moved because he's Eric. Evil bastard. See, actually snoring as well, not parroting, because that's grim, mate. So, personality is defined in part by the interaction between our environment and our genetic makeup. Genetic factors may contribute to vulnerability to stressful situations and to personality characteristics that influence the person's risk for entering into potentially hazardous situations. Yep. However, a direct genetic link to traumatization is far from clear. Mental efficiency and mental energy. High level of mental efficiency is needed for an individual's personality to remain relatively unified after exposure to extreme stresses. Structural dissociation occurs when an individual's mental efficiency and mental energy are too low to fully integrate what happened. Oh, yay, just total babble bullshit. Mental efficiency varies from person to person, increases with age, generally decreases with old age, and tends to change with variables such as physical and mental energy, level, physical and mental health, mood and emotion, and stress exposure. You got to watch out for your mental energy level. Got to level up, guys. Be smart. Please get a video of him snoring, yes. Oh, you broke him up every time. That's what happens to Dante anytime he's cute or snoring. Like, I don't even make a move. It's just the sound. Like, he can hear the sound of the camera, like, winding up or something. Like, must make a high-pitched frequency that dogs can hear and cats can hear. Evil bastards, I swear. They always spot it. Right. Integration is prevented when an individual avoids traumatic memories, suppresses thoughts about the traumatic experiences, has a negative interpretation of intrusive trauma-related memories, or is exhausted. These reactions predicted PTSD in both children. From Ayla's, Mayu, and Brian. Is that the same Ayla's who is responsible for the diagnosis of Ayla's Dan loss? Because I know that's two surnames. No, it's too recent. 2003. Ayla's A. It just comes up with Ayla's Dan loss. No idea. You need to wake up and shake. When pets wake up from sleeping and their fur must be all over and they need to do the whoosh. It's the cutest. Dante's is so cute. Oh, I'm going to be seeing that boy in 20 days. We suggest that individuals are likely to engage in mental actions such as avoidance, suppression, or negative cognitions when their mental efficiency is low. So if you're a fucking idiot with low mental efficiency, you're more likely to get DID is now what he's saying. I don't know. Oh, it's always just so brutal, their language. It's so weird. This is particularly true of the apparently normal part of the personality, the dissociative part of the personality which avoids traumatic memory. However, the emotional part of the personality, the EP fixated in traumatic memories, can also avoid ANP as well as the present reality. Age. The presence of trauma-related disorders has been linked to the age of the individual at time of traumatization. The younger the person, the more likely the trauma-related disorder will develop. This has been found with PTSD, complex PTSD, trauma-related borderline personality disorder, dissociative disorder, not otherwise specified, subtype 1, a lesser form of dissociative identity disorder, and DID itself. A lesser form. It's not as extreme. It's a lesser form. DDNOS, mate. Lesser form of DID, you fucking pussy-holes. Anyone who has DDNOS, it's lesser DID, lesser form. It's not as evolved. Chronic traumatization that begins in childhood stands apart from other types of traumatization. And then just do you realize that that's all references then? Different references. Chronic traumatization that begins in childhood stands apart from other types of traumatization because of child's immature mental efficiency and psychobiological development, and his or her special needs for supporting care. Okay. Peritraumatic dissociation. Symptoms of dissociation during and after a traumatizing event indicate that the individual's capacity to integrate at least some of the experience around the time of the event is insufficient. The presence of these and other peritraumatic symptoms, such as severe alterations of consciousness, are highly correlated with eventual development of serious trauma-related disorders. What is peritraumatic mean? You keep saying this, but emotional and physiological distress experienced during and or immediately after a traumatic event. Okay. Vehement emotions and hyperarousal. Psychic trauma is related to the presence of vehement emotions. In quotations. It's just panic and emotional chaos during and after overwhelming events. Oh, another mountain of references. This hyperarousal probably manifested in elevated heart rate shortly after the overwhelming event, more references, and exaggerated startle, more references. Two predictors of PTSD. Vehement emotion involves maladaptive substitutes for adaptive action. Oh, look at this, guys. The cunt knows the word maladaptive. I actually thought that, because it's not a word I knew until this year, to be fully honest with you. But, it's easy to know if you know the word adaptive, but you just don't think about it really. But the cunt knows the word. He just doesn't use it in the right places. Because there's been a few times he could have used it by now. We are talking ferrets again, my friend. Vehement emotion involves maladaptive substitutes for adaptive action. Genet, 1909. Van der Kolk and Van der Hart, 1989. So reference Genet from 1909 and then reference yourself from 10 years ago. That's the other thing with all these references, don't forget. It's referencing people like Genet. Look, Genet, 1889, 1909. And then, Van der Hart and Brown, 1992. These mountains of references that
Right, I'm
people...
literally... Are you unironically trying to make me cave my own face in? What is this?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, these mountains of references that literally take up lines are Genet in the 1800s and himself 10 years prior, most of the time. I'm not exaggerating. See, there's Nienhouse again. Not even a real reference. Nienhouse and Dan Boer impress this next reference. Oh, I can't wait for that. So adaptive action, that is reactivity rather than reflective thinking through and careful action. Right. Hyperarousal. Although the literature has stressed the presence of hyperarousal as a major diagnostic criterion, it has been noted more recently that hyperarousal is also a significant problem. Not all individuals become hyperaroused during overwhelming events, or they may be hyperaroused at first and then experience a serious and involuntary drop in level of consciousness, hypoarousal. When individuals are extremely hypoaroused, they may not encode much of what is... They may not encode much of what is happening. They're not encoding it, guys. They're not activating the feedback loop in the brain machine with the encoding. They may not encode much of what is happening. Sorry, hyperarousal was like dysregulation characterized by a low state of physiological arousal. Emotional yeah, it's to do with arousal. Arousal is to do with... Arousal... Are they giving arousal a different meaning here? Arousal is the physiological and psychological state of being awoken, or of sense organs stimulated to a point of perception. Arousal is important in regulating consciousness, attention, alertness, and information processing. It's not talking about your pee-pee. Okay. Ain't talking about pee-pee. Why did it just welcome me back to the chat room? Why did it welcome me to the chat room? Why? Did I just like cut out there? Did my signal cut out? What happened? The fuck? Doesn't mean arousal as an up the bum, okay. It's all about being alert. Meaning, the meaning individuals assigned to an event, e.g. an act of God, a punishment, one's own fault, straight in with God, is significant in the development of PTSD. Children typically believe abuse and neglect is their own fault because perpetrators and others often blame them, and because they may not know how else to understand why caretakers hurt them. Belief that an event is physically threatening has been linked to dissociation. Previous training, the way in which people respond to an event depends to some degree on the level of preparedness for such an experience. Although it is hard to imagine how a child could be prepared for further chronic abuse, resilience studies may help us gain more insight into how children learn to cope adaptively with adverse experiences. This knowledge may be of eventual help to children who have lower integrative capacities. In conclusion, whether or not an event has been traumatizing can only be inferred from the effects it has on the individual, and therefore can only be determined after the event. Psychological and biological factors discussed above are known to lead to increased vulnerability to traumatization, that is, development of structural dissociation and personality. I don't think I'm wrong in saying you cannot experience a car crash without experiencing some degree of psychological trauma from it. You cannot experience a violent rape without experiencing some degree of psychological trauma from it. I don't think things like that are necessarily things that, I don't think you can live through an earthquake without being slightly traumatized by it psychologically. I don't think you can live through a category, whatever, hurricane blowing your house to pieces and not develop some level of trauma from it. I think there are things that hands down cause trauma and don't need to be connected to a belief in God, and no matter the amount of preparedness you have will still inflict trauma upon you. I don't think there is a level of preparedness one can have for being assaulted as a child that will prevent subsequent traumatization. Just because that kid's been raped 10 times, the 11th time, it's not going to traumatize him. He'll be fine after that. If they get PTSD, they'll remember every single incident. If they get the ID, they won't remember. They'll be traumatized for life and know every subsequent rape will make it worse and worse and worse. I don't think there's any level of preparedness for certain events. I knew it's not been as intense as I Hate You Don't Leave Me, but I knew parts of this would fill me with disgust, and the self-referencing is pathetic. Fucking pathetic. Onno van der Hart, Kathy Steele, Suzette Boone, Ella Neonhouse. You are pathetic losers. You're scumbags. Literal loser scumbags. Pray you see this shit one day and know what disgusting cunt-like miserable, you're not cunt-like because cunts are beautiful, what miserable maggot-like worm-infested heaps of rot you are, and your names won't be remembered in history. You'll be little footnotes in psychology books in the future about this stupid harebrained idea that you fuckwits passed around and the damage you did to patients. Oh no, you'll be remembered. Oh no, you will be remembered. I'm sorry, you will be remembered famously, long after you die, as a one of a kind, the most inept, most disgusting, singular one of a kind disbarring in your country. You're a one of a kind failure with a singularly unique punishment.
history, I think, will remember that, the same as we'll remember scumbags like Andrew Wakefield. So don't worry, Ono, you're going to be remembered because you're that much of a failure that some failures get remembered. You're like one of those epic historical failures. I actually have a book called The Book of Historical Failures. You know, that's the sort of thing that needs reprinting, and you go in there one day. But the rest of you no-name shitbags, you'll be forgotten. You won't even be footnotes. This is why I never learnt any of your twats' names in the first place, because you're unimportant. You all fucking latched onto Ono's cape and clung onto his power and his name, and you're all just lazy, useless, charlatan, hack frauds, wannabes, and narcissists. I wouldn't let you treat my dog for depression. I literally wouldn't let you treat a fucking dog for depression. Let alone let any of you within 1,000 meters of a child or even an adult with trauma. Because that's how disgusting a lot of you are, being friends with people like Valerie Sinerson and fucking Colin Ross. And you yourself traumatizing and abusing your patients and then writing books and making money off the back of it. Disgusting maggot. I was just chatting to Otto van der Hart and his mates who are definitely watching all my videos, obviously. Sometimes you want to talk to them, even if they're... I don't care that they'll never see this. Because on that off chance they see that, do you know how fucking happy that would make me? Fucking pricks. I hate them. It's going good, Sterling. It's destroy. It's so easy to destroy. It's all just self-referential or referencing Janae in the 1800s. It's the dumbest shit ever. Gatekeeping of trauma. Yeah, that's what's going on, Snell, because he keeps referencing his book from 91. Thank you, Snell. Yeah. See? Literally his book from 91, but reconfirming it. Because he has not evolved any of his ideas. He's just a narcissist. He's trying to be the person who's known for this. Starts referencing during World War One. Right. Mediators of dissociative parts. These consistent clinical observations suggest that the survivor's personality does not become divided in a random fashion in trauma, but has a consistent basic structure from which countless variations can emerge. Aha, there we see DID. This is why they talk about you having a system. So I've often said system does imply some form of order or control, and that's fair enough to want to when you feel like you have, like, yeah, I understand wanting to view your own self as a system, but this is sort of where it comes from, you know. Do you systems in chat? We're slightly low on chat now, but I don't care. There's some of you here. Have any of you ever met another system with like the basic structure? It's not. It's related to internal family systems. If you're saying everyone's got the same basic structure. Most simple division of personality in trauma involves primary structural dissociation, in which there is one ANP and one EP. In the introduction, we propose that structural dissociation comprises a division of the survivor's personality into two or more self-conscious psychobiological systems. What lower-level psychobiological systems mediate ANP and EP? These systems should minimally meet a range of criteria. First, they must be self-organizing and self-stabilizing within windows of homeostasis, time, and context to control and integrate all the rather coherent complexes of psychobiological phenomena exhibited by the ANP and EP. Yes, waffle. As a system, do you find that you have the same structure to your system as everyone else's? Or do you sometimes find that trying to figure out which of your alters is a protector and which of your alters is a this and which of it is that name maybe less than helpful, and just doesn't like. I know I've spoken to a load of people who are just like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. I don't fit any of their weird descriptions. And again, I feel like a lot of it could be coming from here as the starting place as why. So, they should be functional systems that have been developed in the course of evolution and should be analogous to mammalian biological systems. Clinical observations suggest that the survivor, as ANP, typically engages in tasks of daily life, such as reproduction, attachment, caretaking, and other social action tendencies. Wait, so your sexy time alter is the same as your caregiving and attachment alters, really? No? An avoidance of traumatic memories, which support. Your reproductive alter is avoids traumatic memories, which support a focus on daily life issues. In contrast, the survivor, as the emotional part, primarily displays evolutionary defensive and emotional reactions to the perceived threat on which he or she seems to be fixated. Hey, at least it's he or she. Third survivors should be very susceptible to classical conditioning because, as we discussed below, EP and ANP strongly respond to unconditioned and conditioned threat cues. Fourth, these systems should involve stable characteristics, but also allow for case-dependent variation as well. As ANP and EP exhibit both invariance and idiosyncratic variations, finally these systems should be available early in life, since dissociative disorders can manifest from a very early age. Action systems meet all of these requirements. They are organizational, evolution-derived, functional, flexible within limits, and inborn but epigenetic. Oh, epigenetic too. Words, and words. The study of how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that of how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. Alright, psychology, early life stress. In a groundbreaking 2003 report, Caspi and colleagues demonstrated that in a robust cohort of over 1,000 subjects, assessed multiple times from preschool to adulthood, subjects who carried one or two copies of the short allele or of the serotonin transporter promoter polymorphism exhibited higher rates of adult depression and suicidality when exposed to childhood maltreatment when compared to long allele homozygotes with equal ELS exposure. Parental nutrition in utero, exposure to stress or endocrine disrupting chemicals, male-induced maternal effects such as the attraction or differential mate quality, and maternal as well as paternal age and offspring gender could all possibly influence whether a germline epimutation is ultimately expressed in offspring. Why do I feel like I'm reading eugenics shit? Does anyone else feel like I'm reading eugenics shit right now? Research. Two forms of pseudoscience. As epigenetics is in the early stages of development as a science and is surrounded by sensationalism in the public media, David Gorski and geneticist Adam Rutherford have I recognise both their names, have advised caution against the proliferation of false and pseudoscientific conclusions by the New Age authors making unfounded suggestions that a person's genes and health can be manipulated by mind control. Misuse of the scientific term by quack authors has produced misinformation among the general public. There we go. I knew it. Fuck. I knew it. There we go. And when you think about when this was written in 2006, this quote, reference 187, is from 2013. So yeah, epigenetics is still a new pseudoscience that less than 10 years ago, top scientists in the actual field were warning us against placing any value on. But quacks, sorry, I need that quote back. I need that fucking quote back. I went too fast there. I need that fucking quote. That quote was beautiful. warns against the proliferation of false and pseudoscientific conclusions by new age authors making unfounded suggestions that a person's genes and health can be manipulated by mind control. Misuse of the scientific term by quack authors has produced misinformation among the general public. Action systems meet all of these requirements. They are organizational, evolution-derived, functional, flexible, within limits, and inborn but epigenetic. 2006. 2000 Oh no, you've got to check references. Wikipedia is incredible as long as you are willing to check references. If you aren't willing to read the whole page and check references, then it's unreliable. But there are things on it, pages on it, that are phenomenally reliable. It's just down to reference checking, and you have to do that yourself. You can't rely on other people to do your reference checking. Woo! I am getting some proper fucking brown shirt flags, black flags, red crosses, all sorts of feels from this. It's epigenetics. Epigenetics is pseudoscience. This is why I keep recognizing the term. I know now 100% it's because I've seen anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists, especially in the alt-right, claiming that the vaccines affect you in an epigenetic way, but that's because they don't understand what epigenetics fucking are, and it's pseudoscience. It's very convincing sounding pseudoscience that we had to spend a long time reading some stuff about, but it's because the real pros are barely looking at it, you know? It's just stuff being talked about by the quacks, you know? It's just like a self-report. If they bring up epigenetics, innit? Didn't I say we would have Onno van der Hart destroyed in the first chapter? Do I disappoint? I mean, it was destroyed just through the fucking court documents anyway, but, you know, that's pretty great. I love it. Because he's avoided the sexism that I was expecting. And then in comes, I mean, awful writing. He says it's for clinicians, and that by that he means he's just throwing in an obnoxious abundance of medical jargon and over-the-top words, like the author of I Hate You, Don't Leave Me did. And then in comes the proper self-report. I mean, along with the self-referencing and the referencing of Janae from 100 years ago, but then comes the real self-report. In 2006, this was far from science, epigenetics. It is still pseudoscience in our current day and age. So what was it in 2006? Really out there wackadoodle shit related to mind control and hypnotism. Oh, wait. What did Onno van der Hart and Suzette Boone train in, guys? Because all of these books pretty much have been written by trained hypnotists, hypnotherapists, hypnotists. Let's think about that. A community of hypnotists writing books under the guise of not self-help, but mental health, knowledge, and community. Again, I don't think they're intentionally malicious, but are they all egotistical narcissists and hypnotists who never bothered and knew they weren't intelligent enough to get like they're like me? No, they're not very smart, not really. But then at some point they have a cognitive dissonance. I know I'm not very smart and say I'm not very smart. They have a part of them that knows they're not very smart, knows they could never match a psychiatrist or a doctor. But they have the ego, the narcissism, to think that it doesn't matter. They're better than the doctors, experts through their experience that they always have to talk about their 65 years of. I literally will only ever bring up my own experience of talking to people with the ID on a daily basis as a retort to the way they always bring up their experience. To say, if they're experiences, if they're experts, then so am I by now. It doesn't matter for shit, clearly. I wish the damage hadn't already been done, dude. There's a lot. It's interesting how much this damage is out there. We can really, I think, you know, this book again, I probably am going to need to skim read through more thoroughly because we're going to see just how much of it is out there. We will. Like with the BPD rhetoric that is so toxic and damaging. We call them action systems because they help us to meet adaptive challenges through mental and behavioral action. Mentally healthy adults, action systems of daily life and defense integrated. For example, most people live daily life while being aware of potential dangers. They drive defensively, avoid walking alone at night, and seek shelter during a major storm. Not necessarily. Oh, this is so weird. They drive defensively? Catch you later, Lapodia. You have some sleep. Enjoy your lecture. Enjoy the VOD later. What the fuck? Ah, this is glorious. Over the course of evolution, integration occurs within and among action systems as a result of developmental course, allowing us to live in the most adaptive way possible. They regulate and guide action tendencies. Shut up. Justin Timberlake, 1994. Over the course of evolution, these primitive action systems have become linked with higher cortical functions, enabling us to engage in complex action tendencies, including complex relationships. Action systems define, to a larger degree, what we find attractive or aversive, and then generate tendencies to approach or avoid accordingly. Each action system allows us to filter stimuli in or out according to the relevant biosocial goals of that action system. Timberlake 89, motherfucker. And in turn, these systems are modified by that learning. For example, the defense action system and related feelings of fear help us know that there is danger and prompt. Oh, he's talking about this. So action systems was the pre-quack way of saying feedback loop that everyone uses now. Why would they not reference a 12-year-old boy, huh? Clary, same answer as I gave for I hate you, don't leave me. You may have been naive back then. You know to trust what your gut says. Come on, no more doubting your gut ever. It is obfuscation. This is classic. Timing. Timing, motherfucker. Oi. Brain leaks. No doing that. It's obfuscation. It is at its core. That was too... Oh, you guys creep me out when you all do that. Fucking Angie kept doing that the other day. Shocking behaviour. Clary's done that a few times as well. Shocking. Shocking. I love it. It's a perfect word. It doesn't just mean to confuse. It is a word that in this it describes this perfectly. You know, we could use other terms here. Maybe we could accuse it of basically being like a gish gallop, but it's not a debate, so it's not. This is pure obfuscation. To cloud, to filter, to hide. I learnt it from Vampire the Masquerade as well, which I should probably play some more of at some point. I just got to one of the scary bits in that and then stopped playing to play Stalker, I think, or something. I can't remember now. Or Resi, possibly. Be in all the Resis now. I haven't been Resi 3 yet. Oh, we've still got Resi 3 ready to go and play one of these days. And so, yeah, it's this is so... Again, I say it's not a gish gallop, but it kind of is, because how are you? Nobody is. I'm reading these references and laughing at the dates and laughing at things, but laughing at how often it's himself. But as I say, the average person's eye. Note he never puts his own name. If his own name is in a selection of references, it will always be the last one, and that's because your name will hit the bracket. See, Bowie 1969, and then you skip. You look for the last number, and then you continue reading. That's what my eyes have been doing. And that's how he hides himself being self-referential in there continuously. Yeah, I need to play some Resi 3 then, and then some Masquerade. And then get back on the Masquerade, but I think Resi 3 next. But then I really want to also play Nier Automata. I need to play Nier Automata. So it'll probably be that. It's 2B, but... for example, the defense system and action. For example, the defense action system and related feelings of fear help us know there is danger and prompt us to act in our own defense. The combination of sexual and attachment systems help us move toward both attachment and reproduction, both of which provide meaning, support, and pleasure in our lives, and are ultimately necessary for the survival of our species. Sup, did peeps? Your sexual alters that also are often seemingly some of the most self-harming ones. Well, actually, they serve a necessary purpose. That ultimately they are necessary for the survival of our species. Be grateful for your trauma. It is a gift that enables the survival of our very species. How has anyone read this book and not instantly died? Chaps, it's because it's so wordy. They just, at this point, if they're not skipping it like I am, they're probably just overwhelmed by all the words they've read. It doesn't go in. He keeps mentioning conditioning. Is at some point you're going to teach us how to like program where we condition a person with the ID? Because that would be very helpful, I think, if they've all got these sexual alters that just want to reproduce all the time. That's what I'm learning from this. People say that things I've said are stigmatizing or send out a bad message. I can never compete with these pros. Never. Alright, where are we? Where were we? Around here. I can't remember where. Starts talking about hungry people, angry people, some shit. Each subsystem is comprised of a range of modes, motivational states, action subsystems, and associated parts. I swear we were here. We weren't. In the introduction, we stated that these parts are primarily defined by specific action systems, but they may be even more restricted to the confines of particular subsystems or even modes, which further limits their ability for adaptive change. If dissociative parts are fixated in particular action systems or subsystems, they may be unable to accurately perceive and cope with their situation because their perceptions are coloured by the goals, and their field of consciousness will be restricted to stimuli relevant to that particular subsystem. Somebody with trauma, when experiencing PTSD flashback, may struggle. Wow. For an example, as an ANP, for example, as an actually normal part, I love that terminology too, as the actually normal part, Miriam was constantly terrified of losing her child and was overprotective in the extreme. When she went to the mall with her son, she could not focus on what she needed to buy, but only on watching him. She perceived every approaching stranger as a threat and insisted on holding her son's hand tightly even though he was 9 years old and terribly embarrassed by his mother's behaviour. Her mind was filled with the urgent need to protect her child at all costs and nothing else. It should be noticed, the most... Okay, right, there we go. Right, it's the first example of a person, and we get a crazy mother embarrassing her child. It should be noted the most action tendencies are not specific to a given action system or its component, but can be modified and plugged in to achieve a variety of goals. For example, different action systems can promote running to achieve a goal. An individual can run from threat and toward a safe place, defense, run in a race towards the finish line, play, and run towards a loved one, attachment. In the same way, Sexual behavior may achieve different goals. Individuals may engage in sex for recreation, pleasure, procreation, and healthy intimacy. Bruh, first chapter, third time he's bringing up sex. Mandem is horny. Horny. Sex can also be used as a substitute action tendency to avoid feelings or traumatic memories. Oh, wait. No, there was more. Individuals may engage in sex for recreation, pleasure, procreation, healthy intimacy. In some situations, sex can be used as protection from threat, submitting to rape to save one's life, or as barter, exchanging sex for basic needs such as food, shelter, or nurturing. One interesting way to talk about very destructive, self-harming habits that some people have from trauma. Interesting. And then sex can be used as a substitute action tendency to avoid feelings or traumatic memories. Again, this hits upon a nerve of things that we've discussed recently in Discord, very sensitive subjects. I am very proud to say that the way we have discussed it has been infinitely more sensitive than this. This is disgusting. It's not just icky, that's disgusting. What a disgusting way to talk about people that have trauma, especially victims of things like rape. Submitting to rape to save one's life. What a strange way to word it. I can't. No, it is wrong to write about it in this manner, in this language. Again, as I say, it's subjects that we've discussed in Discord as of these last few weeks. And my God, we have done so with far more sensitivity, compassion, decorum. This makes me, I've gone from laughing and pulling funny voice to feeling grossed out. Yeah, I'm saying, I agree, he's not wrong, but he's also wrong. You know, he's not wrong sort of with what he's saying. We've hit on these subjects, but oh my God, it's disgusting at the same time. This is disgusting. In dissociative individuals, this means the same action tendency may involve discrepant roles. While A and P may be involved in running as a sport, EP has only experienced running as flight from danger. While A and P experience sex as intimate and pleasurable, EP experiences as coercive and frightening. The risk, then, is that the action of A and P, e.g. running and sex, may reactivate EP's traumatic memories and related actions. Again, we discussed how, you know, if you have sexual trauma, engaging in sexual activities can be a really conflicting, traumatic experience. It's the ways talking about you like specimens, you're just EPs and ANPs, not human beings. You're no longer a human being, you're just the normal part and the emotional part. That's the problem. This isn't talking about people anymore, it's talking about an emotional part and a normal part, rather than a human being and their experiences and their lives. And we're talking about real experiences here. Horrifically, women have had to exchange sex for millennia for basic needs, such as food, shelter, and nurturing. For millennia. That is traumatic to generations upon generations of women. For millennia, women have, I'm not going to say submitted, have decided that the best course of action in the moment is to endure a horrific rape in order to save their life. You know, it's a decision some people have to make. Like I say, I find this really hard to talk about now. This way of talking about it like you're not even human beings, that's what is hitting me. That's what's fucked. That's what's wrong with this. Oh. So the risk is then the action of A and P may reactivate. Oh, it gets worse. Sorry, I didn't read it all. It gets worse. May activate EP's traumatic memories and related actions. Ergo, running away from threat or having to submit to sex in order not to be beaten, which may be quite maladaptive in the present. You think somebody like my fucking bong over. You think somebody like selling themselves into sex work or things might be a bit maladaptive in the present. This shows you how deep a cult people were in. Because if you have a brain and you're on the outside, or have spent some time looking into this critically, you should. This is upsetting to read. This is disgusting. So far from unnecessary, it's disgusting. This is the rhetoric that has been informing therapists and professionals, the Callian Consultings, Chloe's, and informing your recovery. I'm having a quick break. That's actually upsetting. Fuck off.
By and large,
Nothing funny, just music. How sick. How sick. I know I'm in it, and again, I know when I espouse my opinions on Twitter, people are going to be disagreeing with me, etc., and saying, "Shut up! You shouldn't even be talking about these things." Onno van der Hart's a singlet. I'm talking about your DID. I'm talking about Onno van der Hart and the way he's influenced people that treat you. I'm not talking about anyone's condition here. I'm talking about one man and his colleagues and how they talk about human fucking beings. And teach people to treat you like you are a normal part, an actually normal part, and an emotional part. And your emotional parts just could get triggered by the normal parts and want to get raped, basically. And then you combine that with Valerie Sinusons, and you can't have the idea and not have a fucking persecutor, paedophile, alter, and yep, sick fantasies. People have no understanding of what trauma is. This is why expert by experience, as much as I hate that phrase, is bullshit. No, but trauma-informed. This research going forwards needs to be trauma-informed. And not just by people with DID, people with PTSD, DID, unspecified trauma. I'm so sickened by this. It made me feel physically. I'm upset. Trying not to cry, and I know I always normally let it out, but I fucking just don't. This is They are all pedos. Don't worry, I know what you meant. They are all fucking pedos. And I don't think anybody in this community has a paedophile altar. And I'm sure some of you have probably worried at points thanks to these people's fucking rhetoric that you might do, and I don't think any of you possibly do or not. No chance, no shot, no how. It's not how it works. Child assault doesn't mean being pedo. It's not. It's not. Yep. Trip. Yep. It is. That's the truth. That's the fucking truth. No, they're all pedos, mate. They're all fucking pedos. They're all fucking pedos. Pedophiles. Yeah, I'll put the bins out. I'm raging right now, mate. I'm fucking disgusted at these cunts. Actually, like, so upset / angry at what we've. This was so fine and casual and not as bad as I hate you don't leave me, and then suddenly in literally one paragraph by talking about people's rape and abuse as though you're fucking cogs in a machine. Like, I'm sorry. This is why I don't like doing YouTube stuff, because YouTube stuff can't get viewed if you use the R word. You have to say the R word. An R and an SA. No, sexual assault, rape. I will not bandy about what horrific actions. Those words themselves may be shocking, but are not individually triggering. What's triggering, and has triggered me just now, is fucking people dismissing human suffering as though it's some objective fascination in such a manner. It is not. You cannot. This was the Nazi problem. You cannot be so objective. When making science like this, there has to be
Of course he was going to be a fucking sick cunt like this, because let's remember, he was abusing his patient whilst writing this. 20 years. This is... Let that hit you for a sec. Remember, now, all of this is his thoughts and opinions of his 20-year-long... I don't know, his 20-year-long bong. Need to grind.